There is a place, a sacred place, where every one of us has lived. We may visit it in a fleeting memory, in the scent of rain on dry earth, or in the distant, muffled sound of a mother's laughter from another room. We call this place childhood, and we have built around it a beautiful, unnecessary fortress. We have told ourselves that within those walls there is safety, that the small hands that build with blocks and cradle worn-out teddy bears are held in a larger, stronger hand that would never let go. We believe that the nightlight in the corner, that soft golden halo pushing back the darkness of the room, is enough. We believe that the monsters are only in the storybooks, and that the creak on the stair is just the house settling, and the whisper from the closet is only the wind. This, my friends, is the most profound illusion we are ever gifted. It is a holy and fragile shell, crafted for us by love, by innocence, by a world that knows a child's spirit is too tender for the full, searing light of reality. Inside that shell, we are the kings and queens of a universe where a scraped knee is the greatest tragedy, and a birthday cake is the pinnacle of joy. We are protected, we are watched over, we are safe. But what happens when the shell is not cracked from the inside by the natural growth of living? What happens when something from the outside, something that does not belong in that storybook, presses in? When the very walls of that fortress, meant to keep danger out, begin to whisper back? You see, the truest horror is not the monster you see in a shadowy corner. The truest, most chilling horror is the moment you realize that the corner itself, the one in your own room, the one you've counted sheep in since you could remember, is no longer safe. The horror begins when the familiar becomes alien, when the sanctuary becomes the hunting ground. I want you to think of a child's bed, just a simple bed. Perhaps it had a worn quilt, a favorite pillow. It was a vessel of dreams, a launch pad for imaginations that could sail to the stars. It was the place where you were tucked in, where a kiss on the forehead was a seal against all the terrors of the night. That bed was an altar of peace. Now I want you to imagine that same child in that same bed, but tonight, they are not dreaming of starships or fairy kingdoms. Tonight, they are lying perfectly, preternaturally still. The blanket is pulled up to their chin, not for warmth, but as a frail shield. Their eyes are wide open, fixed on the doorway, or the closet door left just ajar. They have heard a sound, but it is not the house settling. They have seen a movement, but it is not a trick of the light. Their entire world, in that single breathless moment, shrinks to the space between their heartbeats. The nightlight now casts not a golden halo, but long, dancing, accusing shadows. The laughter from the other room is too far away. It's on the other side of a vast cold ocean. They are alone, and they know with a certainty that bypasses all childish doubt that they are not alone in the room. The fortress has been breached, the shell has been punctured, and the thing that has come in, it has come for them. It is a violation of a sacred contract. It is a theft of the most precious currency we possess, our sense of safety. This is not the fear of the dark that we all outgrow. This is the fear of what the dark has brought in. It is the dawning, chilling understanding that the world is not as it was promised, that the rules have changed, and the protectors are powerless because they do not see, they do not hear, they do not believe the shifting shape in the corner. This is the threshold we stand upon tonight. This is the quiet, terrifying moment before the scream. For in the stories I will share with you, the horror did not arrive with a clap of thunder. It arrived on little cat feet, slinking into a child's world, and it looked around, and it found a home. It made itself comfortable in the one place it was never, ever invited. So prepare your hearts, not for a ghost story, but for a story of a home and what came to visit. And so we find that child frozen in that bed, the fortress walls crumbling into dust around them. The illusion of safety is gone, shattered like glass on the nursery floor, and in its place there is only one burning, terrifying question. What is it? What has come into my room? You see, a child's mind is not like ours. It does not have the filing cabinets of adult experience, the easy labels for the rational and the irrational. A child's spirit is wide open, a receptive field, and it knows things in its bones long before the mind can form the words. And in that moment of violation, the spirit cries out a warning. It recognizes the intrusion for what it is. It may not have a name for it, but it knows its shape, it knows its scent, it knows the particular quality of its silence. This uninvited guest, it never arrives with an announcement. It does not knock on the door. It seeps, it slips through the keyhole. It takes form in the space between one breath and the next. Sometimes it wears a face you almost recognize. It might look like the man who lives down the street, the one who always smiles a little too long. It might sound like a voice from the heating vent, a whisper that knows your name, a secret just for you. Or it might have no face at all, just a presence, a weight in the air, a cold spot in a warm room, a shadow that has forgotten how to follow the light. But regardless of its form, the child knows. They know this thing is not here by accident. It is not lost. It is not passing through. It has come with a purpose. It has crossed a boundary that should have been inviolable. And it has come for them. This is the second coming. Not of a savior, but of a predator. A hunter that specializes in the most tender of prey. A child's soul, a child's peace, a child's very future. Think of it. In one story, it might be the figure in the corner. Not a monster from a movie, but something far worse. A patch of darkness that drinks the light, that seems to watch. It has no discernible features, yet the child feels its gaze like a physical pressure. It doesn't move, and yet it feels like it is always getting closer. It is teaching the child a new, horrible language, the language of pure, primal dread. In another, it might be the voice from the vent, a rasping, intimate thing that slithers into the ear. It doesn't shout, it confides, it tells lies that feel like truth. It says things like, "They don't love you, you know," or "I can see you all the time," or "If you tell, something bad will happen to your mother." This guest does not need to break down the door. It picks the lock of the mind. It becomes a secret sharer, a toxic friend who lives in the walls of the one place meant to be safe. And in still another, it might be the thing that wears a smile. It is the most insidious guest of all, because it is welcomed by the adults. It is the friendly neighbor, the kind uncle, the babysitter, who everyone says is so wonderful. It operates in the plain sight, hiding behind a mask of normalcy, and the child, looking into its eyes, sees the emptiness behind the mask, sees the calculation, the hunger. But when they try to speak, the words won't come, or if they do, they are met with a pat on the head and a, "Oh, don't be silly, dear. He's such a nice man." This guest not only invades the home, it recruits the very guards of the fortress to its side. This is the recognition. This is the moment the child identifies the shape of their own personal horror. It is not a generalized fear. It is a specific, targeted, intimate terror. This entity, this presence, this person, it has chosen them. It has studied the blueprint of their innocence and found a way in. And now, it is inside. It is sitting on the edge of the bed they cannot leave. It is whispering from the toy box. It is standing in the hallway, waiting for the parents' door to close. It is no longer a question of if the monster is real. The only question that remains, the question that will echo through the rest of their days, is what it wants and what it will do next. The sanctuary has been occupied, and so it waits. This uninvited guest. It waits in the corner, it waits in the whisper, it waits behind the smile. And a child can only hold their breath for so long. The tension, that awful stretching silence, cannot last forever. Something must break, and it always does. This, my friends, is the moment the world fractures. This is the point of no return. It is not a loud moment, not always. There is not always a scream. Sometimes the shattering of a soul is the quietest sound in the world. It is the single, crystalline instant when the last vestige of the old reality, the reality of safety, of bedtime stories and morning pancakes, splinters into 1,000 unrecognizable pieces, and a new, darker world is born in its place. It is the moment the shadow in the corner moves, not a drift, not a trick of the tired eyes, but a deliberate, liquid shift, a confirmation. The child's mind, which had been pleading it's not real, is suddenly struck silent. The thought does not just vanish, it is obliterated, because it is real. And in that movement, a contract is signed in the child's soul. The world is not safe. The world is a place where shadows have agency. For another, it is the moment the whispering voice stops saying your name and starts telling you what to do. Open the window, come closer, don't you want to see? It is the moment the voice ceases to be a distant curiosity and becomes a command that slithers into the will. The child feels a pull, a compulsion that is not their own. Their own body is no longer just their own. It is being guided by a will that is cold and alien. The fracture is the feeling of your own hand moving toward the doorknob, when every cell in your body is screaming to retreat. And for the child facing the smiling predator, the fracture is a touch, a hand on the shoulder that lingers a second too long, a hug that feels different, the smile that does not reach the eyes. It is the moment the script of normalcy tears down the middle, and the child sees the raw, grinning hunger beneath the mask. It is the sudden, stomach-plummeting understanding that this adult, this person who is supposed to be safe, is the source of the danger. The very concept of trust is broken in that instant. The ground beneath them is no longer solid. It is a treacherous sheet of ice, and they are all alone on it. This moment is branded into them. It is not a memory like other memories. It is a relic. It is a piece of sharp, hot shrapnel lodged forever in the spirit. They will remember the smell of the room, the stale air, the scent of their own fear. They will remember the pattern on the bed sheets, the sound of a car passing outside, the exact hue of the moonlight on the floor. These mundane details become forever twisted, forever tied to the horror. They become the hieroglyphics of their personal trauma, a language only they can read, telling a story only they can fully know. This is the death of their childhood, not a gradual growing up, but a violent execution. It is a death that happens in a heartbeat. One moment, they are a child. The next, they are a survivor. And they are alone in that knowledge, for in this fractured second they are separated from everyone else by an impassable chasm. They have looked into the abyss, and the abyss has looked back, and they know a truth about the universe that the people who love them, who tuck them in at night, cannot possibly comprehend. The world has split in two. There is the world everyone else lives in, a world of school bells and playgrounds and simple explainable fears, and there is the world the child now inhabits, a world where the impossible is possible, where the monstrous is real, and where the safety of home is the most cruel lie ever told. They have passed through the veil, and there is no going back, and so the child is left there in the ruins of their world. The fracture has happened, the terrible knowledge is theirs, the shadow has moved, the voice has commanded, the touch has violated. They are alone with it. But oh, my friends, do not ever believe that a child is helpless. Do not ever believe that they simply lie down and surrender, for when the adult world, with all its logic and its strength, is a million miles away on the other side of a locked door, the child's spirit does what it must to survive. It reaches into its own small soul and forges a weapon. It builds an arsenal not of steel and gunpowder, but of innocence, of imagination, and of a raw primal faith that would put most theologians to shame. A child facing the unspeakable does not fight like a soldier. A child fights like a child. Think of it. That little one in the bed, staring down the shadow in the corner. Their mind, not yet cluttered with the world's disbelief, reaches for the only truths it knows. Perhaps they begin to whisper a prayer they learned at their mother's knee, not with the rote repetition of a Sunday morning, but with the desperate, focused intensity of a lifeline thrown into a stormy sea. Every word is a shield, every syllable is a plea. They are not just saying words, they are building a wall of light around their bed with their very breath. Or perhaps their arsenal is a stuffed animal. A ragged, one-eyed bear becomes the sole defender of the realm. That child will clutch that bear until their knuckles are white, projecting onto its threadbare fabric a power, a courage that they cannot find in themselves. They believe with every fiber of their being that Mr. Snuggles is standing guard. And in that belief, a miracle happens. The courage becomes real. The love they have poured into that inanimate object for years now flows back into them, a tangible force field against the darkness. It is a holy transaction between a child's heart and the object of their affection. Another child, hearing the voice from the vent, will use silence as their weapon. They learn to breathe so softly they cannot be heard. They learn to make themselves small, so small, becoming a stone, a piece of furniture invisible. They play dead, not with their body, but with their spirit, hoping the predator will pass by. They use the language of the hunted, a deep instinctual wisdom that tells them that to be noticed is to be consumed, and the child facing the human predator, the one with the smiling face, their arsenal is often the most complex and heartbreaking of all. They learn to perform, they learn to craft a new version of themselves, a cheerful, compliant, unseeing version to placate the monster. They become master psychologists, reading micro-expressions, sensing shifts in mood, learning what words to say and what topics to avoid to keep the danger at bay. They split their own consciousness in two, sending one part of themselves far, far away to a safe place in their mind, while the other part, the empty shell, endures the present moment. This is not deception. This is survival. It is a desperate act of spiritual self-preservation. This is the child's true power. It is the power to believe the impossible, to believe that a blanket can stop a monster, to believe that closing your eyes makes you invisible, to believe that if you count to 100, the bad thing will be gone. We, as adults, call this magical thinking. We dismiss it as a phase of development. But I'm here to tell you that in the face of a true spiritual emergency, it is not a phase, it is a gift. It is a direct line to a reality where love can be a shield and faith can be a sword. They do not have the strength to fight it physically. They do not have the vocabulary to explain it rationally. So they fight it on the only battlefield available to them, the landscape of the spirit. They fight with the tools they find in the nursery, in the playground, in the simple, profound corners of a heart that has not yet been taught its own limitations. They are the smallest soldiers in the darkest wars, fighting with weapons we have long forgotten how to see. And sometimes, by the sheer defiant grace of God, it is enough. The night ends, the sun, that faithful promise, always rises. The shadow in the corner retreats with the light. The whispering vent falls silent. The smiling predator finally goes home. The immediate terror is over. The child, exhausted, may even sleep, and the adults in the house, they breathe a sigh of relief, for they see a child who is quiet, perhaps a little tired, but seemingly whole. They see the outer shell unbroken. They do not see the hairline fractures that now run through the very foundation of that young soul. Because the horror does not leave when the sun comes up. It does not pack its bags and move on. Oh no, it moves in, it takes up residence in the hidden rooms of the heart, in the dusty attics of memory. It becomes a permanent, unwelcome tenant. The battle for survival may be over for a night, but the war of the aftermath has just begun. This, my friends, is the unhealed wound. This is the long dark echo of that single shattering moment. The child grows, they get taller, they go to school, they learn to drive, they fall in love, they build a life from the outside that looks perfectly normal. But inside the child they once were is still frozen in that room. The trauma is not a memory they recall. It is a lens through which they see everything. It is the filter on every relationship, the subtext of every quiet moment, the reason for 1,000 small, seemingly irrational fears. The little girl who saw the shadow in the corner grows into a woman who cannot sleep without a blazing light in every room of her house. She is not afraid of the dark. She is afraid of what she knows can live there, unseen. The sound of a floorboard creaking down the hall does not make her jump. It sends a cold, familiar dread straight to her heart, a dread she has known since she was 7 years old. It is a physiological memory, etched into her nerves. The boy who heard the voice from the vent becomes a man who is deeply, uncomfortably claustrophobic. He cannot explain why the sound of forced air from a heater makes his palms sweat and his breath come short. He doesn't remember the words anymore, not consciously, but his body remembers. His spirit remembers the violation, the intimate poison of that whisper. He may become a chronic insomniac, his mind subconsciously fighting sleep, the state where he was most vulnerable, most invaded, and the child who was preyed upon by the trusted adult. Their wound is the most complex of all. It is a wound that attacks the very core of human connection, trust. They may build a life, but they cannot let anyone in. Every expression of love feels like a potential trap. Every kind gesture is scrutinized for a hidden motive. They may, in a cruel twist, find themselves drawn to predatory people again and again, not because they want to, but because the pattern is familiar. It is the devil they know. Their entire relational compass was broken in that moment, and it forever points toward the same treacherous north. This is the true cost. This is the lingering poison of that second coming. It was not a single event. It was a seed of horror that was planted in the fertile soil of a child's soul, and it has grown, twisting its roots around their potential, their peace, their joy. They walk through their adult lives with a hidden weight, a grief for the person they might have been had their sanctuary never been breached. They are not just living their lives, they are forever managing the fallout of a war. They never asked to fight. The ghost never left. It just learned to wear their face. So why do we listen? Why do we come to a place like this and give voice to these old, dark things? Is it simply to feel a chill? To have a frisson of fear run down our spine so we can feel more alive when we walk out into the night? No, 1,000 times no. We listen because these stories are more than just accounts of terror. They are testimonies. They are the maps of shipwrecks drawn by the soul survivors. And if we have ears to hear, if we have hearts that are willing to be broken open, they teach us, they whisper back the secrets of the darkness, not so we can live in fear of it, but so we can learn to stand against it. The first lesson is the simplest and the most often ignored. The child is always telling the truth. Oh, they may not have the facts straight. They may call a shadow a monster, a predator, a bad man. But the core of their testimony, the fear, the violation, the certainty that something is terribly, terribly wrong. That is a divine truth. When a child's spirit cries out in terror, it is never a lie. It is an alarm bell ringing in the spiritual realm. These stories scream at us to listen to the whispers of our children, to look into their eyes when they are afraid, and to see not an overactive imagination, but a possible witness to an unspeakable intrusion. We must become the guardians who believe, not the adults who dismiss. The second lesson is this: the sanctuary must be guarded. We have been shown, in the most graphic way imaginable, that the places of innocence are under a deliberate and targeted attack. It is not a random haunting, it is a strategic assault. And if we know that, then our duty becomes clear. We must be the ones who patrol the walls. We must be the watchmen on the tower, not with fear in our hearts, but with a fierce, determined love. We must sanctify our homes, not just with prayers said at the dinner table, but with a presence, an awareness, a refusal to allow the atmosphere to be poisoned by carelessness or by evil. We must be the safe adults, the ones whose love is so unwavering, so transparent, that a child feels in their very bones that here is a harbor that no storm can breach. And the final, most profound lesson is one of power. These stories show us the utter powerlessness of a child. They show us the wound, but in doing so, they point us to the only one who can truly heal it. They show us that the battle is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. And if that is the nature of the enemy, then our own strength, our own locks and alarms, our own rational explanations will never be enough. These children, in their desperate, innocent arsenals, showed us the way. They reached for prayer. They reached for a power greater than the shadow. They operated in the realm of the spirit because they knew instinctively that the attack was spiritual. They are living proof that the only answer to a spiritual violation is a spiritual restoration. The horror is real, the wound is deep, the echo lasts a lifetime. We cannot deny that. But we serve a God who specializes in impossible restoration. We serve a Christ who walks into the locked rooms of our deepest fears and says, "Peace, be still." The same voice that commanded the storm to cease on the Sea of Galilee can speak into the storm of a traumatized soul and bring a calm that the world cannot give. These stories are not an end. They are a warning and a plea. They are a call to vigilance, to compassion, and to a faith that is bold enough to step into the darkest rooms of the human experience, and with authority command the light to shine.